TubFix is a registered trademark of Platinum Pi Limited. In this video, we only show you the recommended installation procedure for an L shower bath frame fixing kit. Today, we'd like to show you the recommended installation for a TubFix L shower bath, as you can see here. So we've removed the metalwork from our box, and there's a few initial steps we need to think about before we get going. So firstly, the frame is ideal for 15 to 1800 length baths. If you have an 1800 or a 1700, you don't need to do anything with the frame. However, if you do have a 1600 or a 1500 length bath, you will need to cut the frame with a hacksaw in the appropriate points marked on the bottom channel and also on the top locking bar, but we'll show that a little bit later on in the video. Within the box is a instruction booklet. On the instruction booklet there is a QR code, and it will take you to this very video if you need to see it at a later date. It also shows you the tools needed for the installation, so check those out too. The other initial steps we need to do is to get our threads out of the bag and in the other bag also to take out the underedge bath rubber tops, and we need to screw those onto our threads initially, just like that. And then once we've done all that, we are going to get our flange nut with the flange facing away from the rubber, and we will start screwing that onto our thread. Then our upright bars, we're going to screw now our underedge bar support into our upright bar. Now, just for speed purposes, you'll find a little Phillips point in the top of the rubber. Now, if you have a power screwdriver, you can put that into your rubber top and you can screw down your thread like that to the rough height of your bath. So we're going to do the other 4. There's 5 uprights in total. We're going to do that and then we'll come back. So this is our final upright support. I just wanted to say a little tip. Just start by hand to make sure you don't cross thread. And if you hold your finger on the flange nut, and then, as I said earlier, just use a driver to drive that in. If you hold it at the same point, that flange nut will go up as the screw goes down. So that's all our 5 uprights done now. So our next step, we want to mark the front edge of our bath on the floor. So the way to do that is to get a spirit level, put it against the front edge of your bath, make sure that it's exactly vertical, and put a little mark on the floor. And we're going to do that on our 850 section here, and then on our return we'll mark that, and again on our remaining section of the bath. And if you are using an end frame to go in conjunction with the front frame, then you will do the end of the bath too. So I'm going to now mark that up and draw a line, and we'll show you where to position the bottom channels. So we have our front line that corresponds to the front edge of the bath marked on our floor, and I've also done a line up in the vertical position on the wall where the wall uprights would go. Now at this point we have to think about the finish that we're going to put on our bath. Being a shower bath, a tiled finish looks fantastic, and the options actually are very minimal for standard baths. So I'm just going to really discuss about a tiled finish. So you have your choice of a tile backer board, an aqua panel, or a waterproof marine ply, and it doesn't need to actually even be that thick. 5mm, 6mm is fine, because the uprights are really very supportive, as you'll see a little bit later on. So with that thickness, plus the thickness of your adhesive, and then your tile, that total thickness that you have, we need to set back our frame according to that thickness. So in this scenario, our tile backer board that we're using and our tiles, they come to 15mm. So I'm going to set back our bottom channels by that distance, 15mm away from the front line that we have just marked on the floor. So in the metalwork you'll find two channels. The channel with the locating points, the three of them here towards the end, that will go to the end of the bath. Now, as I said earlier, if we do have a bath that is smaller than 1700, so a 16 or a 15, we will need to cut that channel, bottom channel, that's marked on the back accordingly. So that channel goes in the position there, and our other channel with the locating point closest to the end will go to the centre of the bath where the return is on the shower bath. So that, as you can see, will go there. So what we're going to do is to mark or just measure 15mm back from our line, and we're going to screw down our bottom channel. Now the bottom channel on this side can go flush against the wall. The position of our other channel, again, will be 15mm back from our line. With regard to the positioning in this plane, we need to just make sure that it is at least 15mm away from the end line that we've marked on the floor for the end panel to go on. It's not actually that crucial exactly the positioning of this bottom channel, but we do need to make sure that we're at least that distance away so that that finish can go on the end of our bath. So I'm going to screw those bottom channels down now in their positions. Provided in the pack are 18mm screws. Now the majority of floorboards will be fine, but just check the thickness of your floorboard, because you wouldn't want to compromise any services that may be running underneath your floor. Of course, with the bottom channels being flat, another option, if you have a tiled finish, a tiled floor, and you don't want to drill into it perhaps, or if you have underfloor heating, you're not sure exactly where it is, use a suitable adhesive or silicone along the bottom of the channel and put that in position, as we said earlier, where it needs to go, the distance away from your front edge line, and let that to dry. You can actually even just put one of the uprights in just to hold that in position while it does dry, or something heavy on top of that. So I'm going to actually screw this into the floor. We have a wooden floor, so I'm going to screw those two bottom channels down in position. I'm also going to screw in the upright. Now, if you find the uprights, there's two uprights. If you're using the frame for a front frame only without the end, then you will need both the uprights, because the other upright will go on the other side of the wall. If you're using it for a front and an end configuration, then you will only need the one upright. So if you screw the flange nut first onto the top of the upright, that will sit in the bottom channel, and you can either put a spirit level on there or just measure 15mm back again from that distance, and then using a masonry drill, you no doubt will have a brick wall, so using a 6mm masonry bit and plugs, you can mark those two holes there, drill and plug that in position too. So I'm going to fix these up now. I'm going to screw them down to the floor and the upright on the wall, and then we'll carry on with our installation procedure. Our bottom channels are now all screwed down. I've also screwed down the L section metal, which is one screw. That's for the return support of the board that will go up on this section of the bath, and again it's set back by 15mm. As you can see, I've already started putting the uprights in place. Now, they have locating points that will fit on those locating points in the bottom of the channel, as you can see here. We want to screw by hand the under edge bar support so they just touch under the edge of the bath and hold those loosely in position. With these acrylic baths, you will find there's wooden blocks or some kind of support underneath. In this actual scenario, none of the wooden blocks get in the way of the frame, but you might find you may have to just adjust things accordingly if the wooden blocks are in the way. Now we're going to tie in the upright members using our locking bars. So we have two locking bars. The one with the cutout at the end, as you can see here, the funny looking shape, that will go to the middle of the bath. Now, like our bottom channel, if we do have a smaller bath than 1700, again we will cut down this section of our locking bar accordingly to our points marked 16 and 15 on the back corresponding to our bath. We have a 1700 bath here, so we don't need to do anything. So we're going to put our locking bar under the flange nuts along the three there. I can just hold that loosely in place by hand by screwing down the flange nuts. Now that strange part will stick out because that corresponds with this section that will sit on top of it, and our M6 nut and bolt will screw down the two. This doesn't go underneath the flange nut on the upright, it sits on the top of the end of the bar, and we'll screw that later on with our nut and bolt together in that section. Just going back to our other locking bar, so with the end cut out, that will go under the flange nut on the upright wall support, and then as we did with the others, it will go under the first and then under the second like this. And that's where this section, this is the return. Now this is adjustable, so it can go in and out depending on the thickness of your finish again. So obviously we have 15mm, we want to set that 15mm back away from the front. There's various methods you can do that, but if you have marked to the bottom floor 15mm back from that front edge, then that mark to the end of this bar, which we have in this instance 20mm, that will correspond with the front edge of this back 20mm. So I'm going to put that underneath, and that will just sit, as I say, on the back, the top, and I will set that back 20mm. So that is now set back by 15mm from the front edge of our bath for our finish. So the only other thing that we need to do now is to get the uprights. In fact, they are, I've just positioned them roughly and they are perfectly vertical. So we'll get those vertical, and then we will screw down our flange nuts, and with a 15mm spanner we will tighten all of those up, and with another spanner we will tighten the M6 nut and bolt up on the corner section here. So that is our front frame finished. If we are using the front frame for a front only configuration, then we will need these other couple of pieces of metal that come in the box. There's the tuning fork piece and the other upright. What we need to do, if I come closer to you here, we need to do exactly the same. Mark the wall in a vertical position. We will screw this onto the wall, and then we will put that on the top, and with a flange nut here, screw that on. And then that will go underneath our flange nut on the end. Now we have 200mm, so it's a fair distance between the end of the wall that we can actually go out with our frame. If the wall is very, very close towards the end, you could even move this section back one notch and then put that underneath like so. So we have flexibility in the end section there for a front frame configuration. With the front frame configuration too, we would recommend that silicone is put on the rubber top underneath the edge of the bath. So when you put the uprights in, if you put a blob of silicone and then just tie it up, and then you can tie that all together, and then when that sets, that will be extremely strong. With the corner bath, of course, the support, it's tied in with the corner, so the bath frame doesn't have any problem. It's pretty strong. But even so, it's still worth putting a blob of adhesive or silicone on top for extra strength. Now we're just going to do exactly the same with the end frame. So we've marked our line already on the floor. We're going to set the bottom channel back by 15mm, and we're going to put the uprights, we'll put the wall upright on, and we'll tie that together. And then I'll just show you how to tie in the two frames, and we'll do that in a second. Okay, so there we have it. Our end frame is in exactly the same method, as I say, and the final piece is just to join the two together with our corner piece, which is in the end frame box. So that will slide under there and undo the first one there, and we'll screw down our flange nuts. Just make sure the vertical position is correct. It's worth holding the thread with a pair of pliers when we tighten everything up, just to stop the thread moving down away from touching underneath the edge of the bath. So we can just hold that slightly, and we can tighten up the flange nuts accordingly, and we can just go around the frame and tighten everything up. So there you have all the frame totally complete. Just before we go, I just would like to discuss how to fix your finish onto your framework. So for a tiled finish, as we said, if you're going to use a tile backer board, then what we recommend is you can either drill a pilot hole through into the metal. The metalwork is quite thick, it won't take a self-tapping screw without a pilot hole. So drill a pilot hole and put in a coated self-tapper and fix the board on. The other method, and probably the more simple method, is to use adhesive or even silicone. So the advantage with that is that that will allow you access at a future date if you need to get under the bath to access your services. So what we'd recommend on the end and the section up to the return is that you put a strip of adhesive on and then put your tile board on. But on the section here where your services are underneath, just put a little blob of silicone or adhesive, just a small amount. Put your board on and then tile around as normal, maybe on the corner, rather than using grout, silicone around the edge. If you need access to your services after, at a later date, you can cut that silicone, get a suction and pull that board off. It should be fairly easy to get off because you've only put a very small amount of silicone on. You can sort out your problem and then literally new bit of silicone and put that tile board back on. And that's the way to get easy access at a later date with a tiled finished bath. So thanks very much for listening to the installation, and I hope yours goes as well as ours did.